Chapter 20. As I rode home, I pondered the events of the morning. I knew Mother and Father would want to hear about everything. It bothered me that my first inclination was to tell them everything was going great with my classes so far.
Just this morning, they encouraged me to be open about my thoughts and feelings. Maybe they already knew what the school was teaching, and that was why they were nervous about sending me in the first place.
I was pulled from my thoughts by the sight of Mother standing outside our house. She waved and smiled, standing near Hannah as she drew on the sidewalk with coloured chalks. Once again, I couldn't help but notice her beauty as she stood there in a long, flowing sundress, her jet black hair unfettered and flowing in the gentle breeze.
Hi, Corban! How was school today?
I waved before jumping off of my bicycle, setting its kickstand and hurrying to give her a hug.
Does that mean school was good or bad?
She chuckled uncertainly. I ended our embrace and looked around nervously.
Where's Father? I don't really feel like sharing twice.
That's perfectly understandable, Corban. Your father is next door, finishing up his work. I decided we could have lunch after both of you returned home. Would you like to color with Hannah?
I nodded, squatting down beside Hannah.
What do you say, Hannah? Can I color with you?
She looked up at me for a moment, before handing me a small stub of chalk.
You draw bow.
Yes, Hannah, but what shall I draw?
She scrunched up her eyebrows and pursed her lips tightly. I struggled not to burst out in laughter at the sight. She took those kinds of things personally. After a few moments of deliberation, she exclaimed,
You draw sea. Sea is blue whale. I draw fishes.
I froze, thinking back to the last time I drew the sea, at home anyway. I'd often drawn it at the Morrill house with Marie. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't stop myself from looking up at Mother, who was looking down intently at both of us. She nodded with a smile tinged with sadness.
Do it, honey. Draw the best sea you can. For both of us.
I nodded slowly in response.
Okay, Hannah, but if you want me to draw the sea, I need green and purple as well.
Green and purple?
Her eyes grew wide in amazement.
Yes, green and purple and blue. The sea is many colors.
She handed me the other colors, and suddenly I became completely focused on the blank sidewalk and the chalks in my hand. As I started to blend the colors into swirls on the sidewalk, I lost sense of time and most everything else around me, only vaguely aware of Hannah continuing to color next to me. The sound of the chapel door closing next door brought me back to reality just as I was finishing with the last swirls of purple at the bottom. Hannah was busily coloring fish on top of the blue and green waves. As I stood up and looked at Mother, I noticed she had tears slowly running down her face.
Mother, I didn't mean.
She interrupted me with a raised hand.
No, Corban, please. Don't ever apologize for who you are and what you do. It's beautiful.
She ended in a whisper before Father reached her side. What's this, then? He slowly looked from Mother, then to me, and finally to Hannah, who was still kneeling on the sidewalk, oblivious to the tension brewing up above her as she continued to chalk.
Hannah asked Corban to draw the sea with her. I gave them my permission. It looks absolutely beautiful.
She smiled proudly before giving me a hug.
Don't you think so, Stephen?
Father looked stunned at having been asked such a question. He stared at Mother for a moment. Yes, it is magnificent. Good work, Hannah, and Corban, you too. Who's ready for lunch? To everyone's surprise, Hannah leapt up and threw down her chalk.
Yes, please.
She ran to the front door, followed quickly by myself, then Mother and Father. After I opened the door for Hannah, I brought her to the bathroom to wash the chalk off of our hands, being sure to clean up any residue left behind. We made our way to the kitchen, where Mother had begun gathering the items needed for lunch. Father, sitting at the table, patted the spot next to him. "Come sit and tell us about your morning, while your mother gets lunch ready."
Well, I have Mrs. Hinckley for homeroom. I had her for life science last year. After that was earth science. The teacher, Mr. Feldner, had a large poster strung at the front of the classroom, and
I continued to share every detail about the lecture and ensuing conversation, leaving nothing out. I briefly followed up with a summary of humanities and geometry as well.
I thought I did well on the assessment, but she said we'll find out tomorrow.
By that time, Mother was seated at the table, and all of us had plates and cups in front of us.
And how did the events in earth science make you feel?
I considered her question for a moment.
I suppose I felt frustrated to begin with. Mr. Feldner listened to and answered my questions attentively, but I wasn't satisfied with his responses. He basically said it was for each of us to decide what to believe, whether we would trust the theories of science that hadn't been disproven, or in other things. I suppose he could have been talking about things like the scriptures.
And how do you feel about that? After giving it more thought, what do you believe?
I know the words of scriptures, that the Creator created everything in 6 days and rested on the 7th. And according to the events recorded, the earth shouldn't be nearly as old as they say. It's difficult to know what to believe, especially since we only have the Creator's words in Scripture to go from.
Well, continue to give it thought. It's good to consider what you believe and why. And remember, what is recorded in Scriptures isn't necessarily at odds with theories held by scientists, though it might seem to be that way. That's both the difficulty and the goodness in having faith in something, isn't it? We don't know for certain, but we choose to believe in it, just like scientists believe in their theories. He continued regarding me for some moments. This wasn't easy sharing with us, was it, son? Once again, I was caught off guard by the depth of his perception.
Well, I had thought about not sharing everything. I didn't want to give you a reason to take me out of public school. I really enjoy going. I'll continue to think about what you've said, and I'll share any problems that come up in the future.
Good. Now let's eat. That night, before going to bed, I went to my window and picked up the small stick sitting on my windowsill. In the 4 years since it had found me, it remained unchanged, still a gnarled remnant of an old tree, reclaimed from the sea. It was a welcome presence, both calming and reassuring, much as looking out to the great sea had been for most of my life. As I turned it about in my hands, I reflected on the chalk drawing etched on the sidewalk outside my window. Mother hadn't been too upset by it, or if she had been, her pride in our accomplishment had outweighed her sadness. Father had told me at least several times that trying to avoid problems and feelings wouldn't help resolve them. So why did he suggest avoiding Mother's feelings?
Perhaps he was using it as an excuse to get me to give up drawing.
All I knew for certain was that Mother and Father didn't always agree on everything, and that was happening more often as I grew older. Or was I simply becoming more aware of it? As I slowly drifted off to sleep and thought once more over the events of the day, I decided it had been a decent birthday after all.